Hey guys, welcome back to Lake Fork Marina for our bi-weekly Friday night seminars. Man, we're very, very glad to see a full house as usual with y'all, and got a Bass Champs tournament registration going on. I see Mr. Ken Donahue down the stairs. Shout out to them. Thank Lake Fork Marina and the Donahues for allowing us to host this here week.
Yes, sir.
Very much. John Bowling's back this week. John's been fishing Lake Fork the last few weeks. It's crowded here today, folks. We got a big tournament registration. There's a lot of folks here. So John's been out on the lake the last couple weeks. I've been out on the lake the last couple weeks. I'm sure we all have. How many people have fished Lake Fork the last couple weeks that are here? Most of us. Okay, most of us. All right. Yeah, it's been it's had its ups and downs for sure. It's been a challenge. You know, one thing that does happen every year, and we've had some extenuating weather circumstances that certainly haven't helped us any, right? I think yesterday morning it was 27, today it was 35.
Yeah.
When you get that cool trending water, when fish are wanting to move up, the daylight is getting longer, trees are budding, Mother Nature's saying, hey, it's spring, it's supposed to be spring. We're sitting here right here at the last couple days of February now, and these fish are wanting to pull in there. Everything's telling them to pull in there, and then they get shocked with cool trending water. It kind of tends to shut them down a little bit sometimes. And on top of that, there's something that happens every year out here. Even when you have all the right weather, you can have a southwest wind blowing, 60-degree lows at night, 75-degree highs during the day. Well, if everything lines up right the way you want it to, always every year, right before a major wave of fish starts spawning, the first major wave of fish starts spawning, there's kind of like a few days there where it gets kind of tough. They kind of go into a hold mode. They quit their pre-spawn feeding and they kind of start searching for beds and looking up in those areas. And I think those fish are trying to get into that phase, but the cold weather is kind of keeping them in between a full pre-spawn grouped up feeding situation and going ahead and getting up there and getting spawning. Because what I have experienced is, I always say they're never alone in the pre-spawn, and they're not. They're not. When fish are in a pre-spawn feeding mode, they're never alone. They hunt in packs, they feed in groups. You'll always, if you catch one, if you'll sit there and grind it out, you'll always catch another one. But here lately, it's been one at a time for me, and it's been one per spot. Usually, like if I find a good pre-spawn stage in there and I catch one, I don't catch another one there necessarily, especially here the last few days. My customers from yesterday sitting right over there, you witnessed that. We would get to a spot, things would look good, bait would be there, we'd catch a fish, and then nothing. And so that's kind of what I've seen going on, is there's a little bit of an in-between phase where there's not groups of fish. They're kind of, some are trying to move in. And, you know, I think listening to Mother Nature is a big deal, and trying to pay attention to not just the weather and the wind and the water temperature and the water clarity. Like, that's a lot of things we got to consider when we're fishing. But I think one of the big things is, especially as we get into these seasonal changes, winter to spring, spring to summer, summer to fall, so forth and so on. If you just pay attention to the outdoors around you, it will tell you a lot about what's going on. And the trees, I referenced the trees a minute earlier. Some of you have probably heard me say before, if the dogwoods are blooming, there's some bass, the first bass of the year on beds when the dogwoods start blooming. That's a fact, Jack. There are bass on beds. I have seen bass on beds. We saw some this week. There are bass on beds. Now,
I've seen 4 out here on beds yesterday.
On these cold days, those fish tend to not want to be stuck to that bed, and they're real hard to catch, these early ones, okay, on those cold days. But there are bass on beds, not a major wave or anything. But if you start looking at even all the oak trees and everything is budding and blooming. Everybody notice that? Oh, okay. If you have springtime allergies, your nose has probably noticed it like mine has the last few weeks. So what that tells you is, despite the fact that it's 27 degrees, these trees are budding out. Why is that? Well, obviously trees and fish don't have a calendar, but they do have the sunlight. And the sunlight is a calendar in and of itself. The amount of sunlight they get during the day, the daylight period, is getting longer. That's telling Mother Nature it's spring. And if it doesn't feel like spring today because it's 27, it's going to feel like it tomorrow. It's coming. And that's what I think is going on with these fish. They are pulling into those areas they want to spawn at. They're getting close to them. They're getting into those areas, but they're hard to catch. They're hard to catch. That being said, the best way that I can catch them right now is just fishing overly methodically and slow in areas that I have confidence in. If I see a lot of bait fish on these main lake shallow points that we've been fishing, and it's got some wind on it, I'm gonna lock down there and stay there for a while. And some of those spots that we did catch a couple fish on yesterday, we were there for a long time making repetitive casts before we would get a bite. That's definitely a factor that you have to do right now. The loons help. One thing that I've kind of thought about with the loons, I've always wanted to see the loons, and you talked about this 2 weeks ago, wanting to see the loons dive on that shallow point and stay there and keep diving on that shallow point. And that's the best case scenario. That tells you that loon's actively feeding in that one location, right? That tells you a lot. But one thing that I thought of this week is it's been kind of a grind, and one at a time was I would see one loon come, make a dive on a shell bed, and then, or on whatever you want to call it, shallow point, hard spot.
Shell bed.
It doesn't have to be a shell bed per se for this deal to work. There's clay points that they'll do the same thing on. There are definitely some that have more shell than others, but they'll shop all of them. They'll go cruising by all of them. And as I saw these loons come by and make a dive and then keep going, a light bulb clicked in my head was, if that one loon drives by and does that, what's to stop that 1 6-pounder from driving by and doing that? And so get in that area where those loons are driving by. Like if you see that loon dive on a point, hey, there's bass that are going to come by there doing the same thing. And that was just a thought that popped into my head that I've never really quite thought about it that way. Always before, when I seen them leave, I'd kind of bail. We did that about a few weeks ago. We bailed on one because the loon left. But if that loon cruises by, if you'll take your time, listen, if you don't have anything else better going, and you know you're in a high percentage area that's getting some traffic from a predator that's eating the same thing your target species is, you might as well stay there and see if he'll pass by too. And that's kind of where I've been this week, and it's been tough. But we have caught some decent quality fish, just not a lot of them. So that's where I am. Carolina rig's been my best bait. I know you have been kind of on something a little different.
Yep.
Same structure, same cover.
Same exact stuff.
So for me, you just bounce back and forth with me here for a second.
Okay.
A lot of the stuff that I want to fish in the backwater, the early spawning areas, a lot of it is still too dirty for me to want to fish it.
Yeah.
Like maybe not too dirty to fish it, but too dirty to fish it on a cold trend. Okay. If I had a warm trend, the water's clear enough now, I'd go back there and fish it. Like Monday and Tuesday, I'm gonna run all over this joker in the backs of the creeks and go to town. But on a cold trend, I don't want to fish that super dirty water.
No.
And the areas that are gonna tend to be your early spawning areas, they also tend to be up towards the upper end of the lake, and they get a lot of the flow. And so they're really dirty. So for me, I've really started spending a lot more of my time on the main lake or close to the main lake, fishing these shallow staging points where these fish will pull up and feed like it's a little dinner table and then pull off it. They just kind of pull on and off it randomly throughout the day. Those are the spots I've been spending most of my time on, having my success on.
Yeah, I've been doing that as well. I did find one little pocket today that the water was super, super clear in it. I found it, take that back, I found it yesterday. Water was only like 2 foot deep in it, but I'd fished this one spot out for probably 5-6 hours, and I literally looked back and I was like, that water looks kind of weird, because the water's been stained for what now, like a month?
Yeah.
It's been bad. And I was like, let's go see. The fun part was I had to go through pads, lily pads, everything. That was hard. I found the mother lode in it. But I think it's because you can see down in the water.
Yeah.
Like I seen 4 yesterday in it that was literally on beds, but they wouldn't bite.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I'm staying way out.
Well, there's no doubt that when you've got a bunch of dirty water and then you got some fish that are wanting to spawn, they're going to seek out that clean. If there's cleaner water in that area, all those fish in that area are going to want to spawn in that cleaner water. Like that's a thing.
Yeah.
So.
The main thing for me now is fishing those long points. But
but
you have to sit there for.
Before we get into your whole topic, one more thing I did want to add that I forgot was I did see today, this afternoon, it got up in the 60s. It was warm, sunshine. And again, like similar to what John said, today was extremely tough for us. Today was the toughest day I've had in a while. Today was tougher than yesterday, believe it or not, boys. I kind of bailed on the main lake deal because we'd run that all day and it wasn't working. So I said, hey, it's calm now. The wind quit blowing. It's been sunny all day. Let's go get back in a pocket. I know where there's some cleaner water. Went back there and got in some really clear water that was kind of tucked back off in an area that warms up early. And the water temps got all the way up to 59. Now, bass will 100% spawn in 58, 59, 60 degree water. Absolutely. They will start spawning and lock on in 59 degree water. Now, that water just got to 59 this afternoon. It needs to get there and stabilize for a day or two before they'll lock on. But the point is, 59 degree water today, We got more warm days this weekend. We got a really warm night Saturday night, pretty warm night Saturday night going into Sunday, a really warm night Sunday night going into Monday. So it's tough right now, but it's about to go down.
Oh, it's about to get
like it's about to go way down. Like every year there's this little lull, calm before the storm, then it busts loose.
It's about to
seeing what I saw water temperature wise and seeing what we got coming up weather wise, it's about to get real good real quick around here.
Yeah, so. It's about to get really, really dumb.
And the good thing is that'll put that first wave that's kind of in between up on the bank all the way.
Yep.
But what it'll also do is take that next wave, which is sometimes even more fish, and put it on those shallow points.
Yep. And then that's going to be really, really fun.
Yeah.
That's going to be.
Yeah, when we start getting more numbers on them points, it'll be real fun. All right, go ahead. Tell us what you got.
All right, so basically all I'm running is those long shallow points. It don't matter if they're all the way out in the main lake or if it runs way out, that's a point that you need to fish. Pretty much, I've made up my mind yesterday morning that I was going to do this because I haven't, it's been tough on me this whole week. And yesterday morning, I decided that I was going to do it. I went to the first point of the day, pulled up on it. The first 5 casts, I had a 4.5, one that went 3, and one that was like 2.5. Sat there for another hour and a half, did not get bit. Went back there yesterday afternoon about 1:30. Pulled up on it again. First 3 casts, caught another 4-pounder, caught one that maybe went 2 pounds. But what I noticed is I can't get bit on nothing right now unless it's big. A big bait right now is the only thing that I can catch one on. Yeah. But in my head, yesterday morning, I thought, okay, this week has been terrible. So let's go for 5 of the biggest bites that I can get. And the 2 baits I'm throwing is a Smash Tech 6-inch. I started yesterday throwing the line through 7-inch, and basically, like with all the wood, that just didn't work. So I went down to the 6-inch, and this is I believe that weight is a 3/8 ounce, and it's working really, really good.
Is this the 8/0?
Yes, it is.
So this is the 8/0 Owner Beast Flashy Swimmer. It only comes in 1 weight size.
Yes.
So whatever it is, it's that weight.
I think it's the 3/8.
I don't know what they weigh. I just know it's an 8/0.
Yeah.
Because they don't give you options, so there's no reason to even know what the weight is, right? So.
And something I'm doing since the water, I mean, you can see some of it. The problem with the water is it's not dirty, but it's not like super, super good right now.
It's got a stain to it, but there's visibility in it.
Yeah. So I threw it some yesterday, and I didn't get bit on it, but when I changed to this hook, that's when they started.
With the Flashy Swimmer.
Yes.
Give it a little vibration out in there, help them find in that stained water.
But now if I can get on those points that are out here where like you have some stuff on them, let's just say I threw this yesterday.
What bait we got here?
This is the Smash Tech Felon.
That's a line through?
It's a line through. I would rather throw this because once they're hooked, they're on it. But in the wood, this will make you so mad, it's not even crazy. I literally threw a fit yesterday for about 30 minutes because I got hung up every cast. But this is the only bait yesterday that they bit in the afternoon. And I was throwing a light hitch, they stopped biting it. I picked up the white because the water is still not, I mean, it's stained, but it's not stained. And so I picked up the white.
It's brown colored, but there's some visibility.
Yeah,
you can see down it a little bit. Yeah.
Foot maybe.
Yeah.
And so when I picked up the white one, the 2 biggest ones yesterday came on that bait. And the line, I changed my line up on it. I missed probably 6 fish on it. I changed my line on both of these. This is 30-pound monofilament. Because I thought the fish just wasn't really, they either didn't really they didn't like something about it. So I changed up, and after that, I've caught every fish since. But I would rather throw it on, I was throwing 17-pound trilene 100% with it. I would rather throw that, but I went to this, and it's really helped me. I'm throwing that on a...
So you were throwing it on fluorocarbon, you went to mono.
I went to mono.
And why do you think that helped you?
They've got the bait literally...
Just letting them get the bait a little better with the stretch and the line, just letting them get the bait better?
They're hitting it really hard. Really hard. So in your mind, when you feel that hard thump, your first reaction is to jerk.
Yeah.
And with this line, it really lets them...
The stretch of the mono allows them to get it better.
Helps with it. It does help with it. I'm throwing it on a lose 6/8 to 1. That's just what I like. and a 7.7 rod. I was throwing it on an 8-foot ear stand. I just felt like it was like
Yeah,
way too
these
big.
baits aren't like overly heavy.
No, they're not overly heavy. Like that one's only like an ounce and a half.
These swim baits that I throw on a 7.8 heavy, and you're throwing on a 7.7 heavy. And honestly, that's enough rod to handle these baits.
It is.
You know, when you start talking about like the 8-foot extra heavy and all those like super big swim bait rods,
You're talking about like a 9-inch.
that's more for throwing like the HPH gliding gizzard and the big depths and the hinkles and all these glide baits and hard baits, the buka shed and all that. All these big jointed hard baits that weigh 3, 4, 5 ounces. These baits are under 2 ounces, so a 7.8 heavy or 7.7 heavy, what we're throwing, that's plenty for these baits here.
Yeah, I mean, like
I think even with the Convict, which is like the bulkiest plastic swim bait,
it's big.
it still weighs, with a weightless 10-aught hook, and it still weighs like 1 3/4 ounces.
Yeah,
so it's still under 2 ounces.
The other bait I'm throwing, I think I brought it, but it's not in here with me. I think it's on my truck. Is a Smash Tech Poacher. I'm throwing it a lot, but I'm throwing it more in like the super, super shallow water. I'm throwing it where the water, like today I fished in the back of a pocket and I tossed it around some. But I'm fishing it in water that's maybe like a foot deep. But I like it because the bait's big, but it's not long big. That's one reason but these right here, that's literally the only thing that I've caught a fish on this week. And I've got some guys going with me first thing in the morning, and they want to literally throw these all day long, and I was like, I'm in.
Good timing.
I'm in.
Good timing, bro.
I'm in. Because he said, I want to go for the biggest fish that's in that pond. I said, well, good, because that's the only way that I'm even going to go out. So
as far as you're throwing the weedless one if you got a point with timber. If you got a point that doesn't have a lot of timber, you're going to a line through because the hookup ratio and landing ratio is obviously better. Now, to me, you can tell me where you disagree or do agree. There's a pretty significant difference in how I'm going to set the hook and really present these two baits. With the weedless one, I'm going to throw that bait out there and I'm going to point my rod right at it and I'm going to reel. And I don't want any bow in my line. I don't want to have to point the rod. I want my rod straight out. 2 reasons. A, that helps that swim bait bulldog through some junk. B, because the reason it helps it bulldog through junk is because I'm going to pitch this to you. You hold on to it for me. There you go. Good catch. So just hold the line for me. So when I'm doing this right here, and I'm pointing my rod straight at it, I know the camera can't see this, but just imagine it. That line's coming straight out. See that line's coming straight out? That's exactly how I want to retrieve it. I don't want my rod down. I don't want my rod up or to the side. I want my line straight at it, and there's 2 reasons for that. One, your rod, any rod, even a heavy action rod, has a little bend to it. So when you're reeling it to the side, okay, and it comes up on some junk, that'll allow that rod will act like a shock absorber and allow that bait to get wadded up on that junk a little worse. But if you're pointing straight at it, it takes all that bow of your rod out, applies direct tension to the bait, and helps it bulldog through there. The other thing that does is when you're fishing an 8/0 hook, if you've ever done carpenter work, you can take a finishing nail and push it in with your finger. But if you've got a big 10 penny, you got to swing that hammer, son. Well, that 8/0 heavy gauge EWG swim bait hook, that B swim bait hook, that's a big 10 penny nail. You got to drive that hammer home. So when I go to set that hook, I want to set it as fast as I can and as hard as I can. And the best way to do that is have no slack and no give in my line. If my rod is off to the side, give me a little slack. If my rod's over here and I go to set it, I'm going to point my rod this way and then set. That's going to be a split second longer that fish has to get rid of that bait. And they can feel these heavy baits. They can feel them as soon as they bite them. So they tend to spit. Anything that's heavier, they'll tend to spit quicker than they will something. Like you're throwing a whacking worm, they'll hold on to it all. They'll swim all over the pond with it. But a swim bait or a punching rig or a big heavy jig, they'll tend to spit out. So I want to set the hook fast. So I want no slack. The other thing that does is as soon as I start pulling, I'm applying direct pressure on that fish to drive that hook home. So when I got it straight line like this, as soon as I start driving it home, that helps me drive that big nail into their head. So this is how I would fish a weedless swim bait. Now, on the line through, it's going to be a different deal.
Good call, buddy.
The line through has a treble hook hanging off of it.
How are you? There you go. You want that one?
Now, it's a bigger treble hook, so you can go ahead and swing it. I'm not telling you got to baby into this like you do on a lipless crankbait or a jerkbait or, on a lipless crankbait or jerkbait. We just kind of reel into them and pull a little bit. We don't really get after it that hard. Watch that hook on it.
Watch that hook, that one's sharp.
But Okay, so on a lipless crankbait or a square bill, something like that, which kind of reel into it, you don't have to do that. That treble hook that's on that line through is a bigger treble hook. It's like a number 1, usually number 2.
I think that one's a number 2.
Number 2 on that one. Some of the bigger line throughs will be a number 1, like the big 7-inch gizzards are number 1.
It's a number 1.
But I will actually work that bait and steer that bait. If I want that bait to get deeper, I'll point my rod down.
Yep.
Like I'll leave that bow in my rod. And again, J-Bo, like you were talking about, letting them get that bait on that line through, that shock absorption.
Yep.
So having my rod at that angle, see that bend in that rod right there? Hold that line, Case. See that bend in that rod? So when that fish goes to bite it and I'm reeling it at this angle, pull on it a little bit. That's going to give him that shock absorption. That rod bend is going to give him the shock absorption when I'm holding my line at an angle out of my rod tip. And depending on whether I want it to go deeper in the water column or if I'm fishing a really shallow point, I want it to go high, I'll hold my rod way, way up. Sorry, bud.
Yep.
I'll hold my rod way, way up. Hang on, I'm coming back at you. I should have stripped. So I may hold my rod like this and slowly reel it.
Yep.
Because this is a slow crawl on all these baits. It's just slow crawl.
Yep.
So I may hold it up like this if I want to keep it up in the water column. Or I may hold it down if I'm wanting to get it deeper. Either way, I always want a little bit of an angle in my rod when I'm fishing a line through, okay? And that's going to help that fish get that bait a little better and me not tight line him as soon as he bites. It's going to help me. Go ahead and set the hook and pull on them. That's fine.
Yeah.
It's a big, heavy gauge treble hook. But just your rod positioning is completely different with these two baits. For me.
For sure. Yes.
Thanks, sir.
The main thing with these is fish them as slow as you can. This one, you can't really do it like you can like with this one. This one, I'm reeling that bait like this.
It's just
to where that tail just does this.
Well, that one's got a belly weight on it. This one has no weight on it. Now, we have other baits that we'll throw, okay? Smash That Convict mentioned it earlier.
Convict.
We'll throw it on a weightless 10-aught on a beast hook. That one is the same. If you want to throw a weedless bait and get that slow crawl, like if you got a stumpy point that's real shallow and you want to fish it,
that's a bait you can slow.
You can just crawl it, and it'll stay right under the surface. Okay, but same deal. If it's weedless, point it right down the line. If it's a treble hook, you can manipulate your rod and you want an angle in your rod so when that fish bites it, it helps you absorb that shock. The other thing about fishing these swim baits, and this for me is the same on both. Once I've driven that nail home on a big swim bait, we are not playing around, boys.
No, force them to the boat.
Get them in the boat yesterday. What you want to do, set that hook as hard as you can. Okay, start horsing him in. Start horsing him in. And when he comes to the top, if he's coming to the top over here, I'm going to put my rod in the water this way. If he's coming to the top over here, I'm going to put my rod in the water this way. I want him to come up. And as he's coming up, I want to be reeling so hard and so fast that he gets his mouth full of water and never even gets a chance to shake his head.
Yep.
Okay? So he'll come up and do this, and you're just cranking him so hard and so fast that he starts coming to the boat on the surface, and he's trying to do this, but he can't because you ain't letting him have nothing.
Yep.
And you just get him all the way there and either boat flip him or net him right there at the boat.
Yep.
If you let them get their head, these big giant fish that you can't hook on this deal will whip your tail.
Don't let them have anything back.
Don't let them get their head back down. And don't ever let up on them.
Work really good, but here's the thing. This bait too, if he ever turns back, that fish is gone.
Yeah.
He's done.
And they will break off whatever size line you got. Some of these giants will now. One beautiful thing about throwing these big baits on the shallow points, you can hook some big ones.
You can hook some really big ones.
I had a customer a couple years ago say, hey, can I throw that big? We were fishing these shallow points. We were throwing big spinner baits and catching fish and having fun. He said, hey, can I throw that big swim bait? I said, of course you can. I said, you're not going to get near as many bites on it, but you might get a giant. Well, sure enough, he picks that big swim bait up and he gets into it. And I told him kind of what was going to happen. And I told him the same thing I just told you guys. I said, first I told him, that fish is going to bump it. A lot of times they'll just bump it and not get it. So just keep reeling.
Yeah.
When they hit that big swim bait, they'll hit it so hard you won't have any, like you'll set the hook out of self-defense.
You know it.
Sure enough, as I'm saying that, he goes, oh, he just bumped it. I said, just keep reeling. Then all of a sudden he's like this. He's reeling, and I told him he'd set it out of self-defense. He's reeling. He goes, oh, he just bumped it. I go, keep reeling. He keeps reeling, and he goes, oh, God. And the fish about jerked the rod out of his hands. He just starts pulling on him. And I said, just keep him coming like I told you, because I told him all that. Hey, when you get that fish up, just keep him, don't let up. And he did great. Everything was great. And he got that fish about 10, 15 feet from the boat and saw it and went, and let that, and kind of pointed his rod down and let that fish get its head and go. And that fish took out, peeled a few yards of drag and broke that line.
Yep.
That was hands down way over 13, biggest fish I've ever seen in my life.
Yep.
And if he would have just kept doing this and never hesitated, the net was right there. So.
And literally that happens out here every day. basically I'm fishing all the shallow points on this lake. Today I didn't really run around that much, but yesterday I burned a full tank of gas in like 6 hours. I ran around a lot. But what I found is if they're there, you will get bit like that, but then after that they're gone. I'm catching maybe 3 fish per spot, and that's it. But I feel like, because today the water in the main lake was 54, back of a creek that I found was 57, he found water that was like 59.8. I think I know where he's at. But tomorrow I feel like the main lake will be 56 to 57, and the back of these creeks are gonna be 59 to 60. And this bait here, I will have tied on for that. Because this bait here, you can throw it on points in the creeks. This will catch those ones that aren't quite there yet. Like I seen a guide today, not today, take it back, yesterday. I don't know who he was, but I do know that it was a guide. And he had a client catch around a 7-pounder on this bait, throwing it, I think she was throwing it off of either like the back of the boat or something. She just literally turned and was looking like, and just cast it out. And then all of a sudden you hear her screaming, hooping, and hollering, and I look back and I'm like, y'all need help with the net? But she caught it on this same bait, same color, same everything. This pattern is gonna go for until they're up on beds. And even after that, I'll probably run this pattern until last week of May is when that I will probably do this, because it's just gonna keep getting better and better every day. But the problem is I feel like it's gonna get super warm, and then in the next 2 weeks, it's gonna get right back to being cold again. I feel like that's the main problem right now. But there will be fish caught this weekend, probably off of beds. Because like yesterday I seen 4, but they just wasn't locked on it, and they was just males. But they are literally almost there. Like this lake is so close to it, it's not like, it's gonna be insane. Like me and him talked today, I told him, I said, I think it's gonna get really stupid the next like 2 days. You're gonna see big fish, big fish, big fish.